Hey everyone, I'm Clayfect and I'm back to finish off the spooky season with ya. Now, as you might have guessed, we are diving into the mummy universe today. I am going to tell you a bit about the mummy lore and history, while we sculpt a character I am also going to tell you more about. So without further ado, let's get started. So while I get to sculpt our little mummy that I have decided to call Milton, because that is the original name pick for this week apparently, why don't we dive right into the history of the mummy. Though before I get started, a quick disclaimer. I am not an archaeologist or an expert on bandages in any way, so please don't wrap me up like a gift and stuck me in a sarcophagus. I am just a girl with Google. But that being said, let me tell you about the mummy. Now, when we talk about mummies, we often think about bandages and Egypt, but that is not when or where the first mummy were created. Archaeologists has actually found in Chile mummies that are 7,000 years old. They were made by the Tutankhamun people that had removed all the organs and covered the body in clay before painted it black and red. So we could almost say that it's one of the most morbid and earliest DIY projects us humans have made. However, it was the Egyptians that perfected the art of making mummies. They believed that they needed to preserve the body in order for the soul to live on in the afterlife. They also removed the organs, but they dried the body out in H1 before treating it with oils and resin, only to finish mummifying the deceased by wrapping linen upon linen around the body. The word mummy actually originates from the medieval word mumia, which originates from the Arabic word mumiya. I am probably butchering both those words, but I tried my best. Now, that word I do not dare say again actually translated not to bandage corpse but to brimton or asphalt, which caused a very huge misunderstanding in Europe when it came to mummies. Not only did they ground these poor things up and use them as medicine, but they also used the mummies as pigments and created what we now know today as the color mummy brown. I have no idea why any European would think that that would be a good idea. But anyway, if you have seen a painting from the Victorian era with a warm brown color, there is a big possibility that you have stared at a mummy, so to speak. And believe it or not, it actually gets worse, because in the 1800s it became very popular to host these mummy unwrapping parties. It's so wrong in so many ways, but at least in some degree the mummies took revenge in 1922 when Tutankhamun's tomb were opened and a curse supposedly were released, which of course made Hollywood go haywire and helped creating the mummy that we know today. And that in short is pretty much what I know about the mummy. So let's get back to the sculpture and back to me asking you if a like, a comment, or even subscribing could be a possibility, because it would do wonders for my channel. Now, while you're hopefully doing just that, let's get started on Milton's head and let me tell you a bit about Milton. Milton were and still is obsessed with the game hide and seek. He was actually a pro when it came to that game. He always played on a legendary level, which is how he came of days. Because one day he hit so good that nobody was able to find him. Days passed, years passed, centuries passed, and even whole civilizations passed without anyone ever finding Milton. And even though his story could be seen as a very tragic one, Milton is actually fine and happy with it, because he is still completely undefeated in that game. And even to this day he stays committed. When tourists are visiting his pyramid, he sees it as another round of hide and seek. First he's seeking and fighting the poor tourists that are scared out of their mind, before himself are going into hiding and are waiting for them to play back. But usually they scream and drop their selfie sticks on the way out. So he has gotten quite a collection of those. Milton is not evil, he's just misunderstood. He doesn't understand why people are screaming when he jumps out of the dark at them. So that is why he sometimes are taking a break from terrifying the tourists and dive into his other passion, fashion. Because where we see bandages just as medical leftovers, Milton sees couture. He is a visionary in lace lines and a trendsetter of the timeless decay look. So if Milton isn't playing hide and seek with you, there's still a high possibility that he will approach you to show you his new fold style and linen placement. Because above all else, Milton believes in customer engagement and see it as praise when people are screaming at him. Milton is a giver. In fact, he is actually so much of a giver that he gives everyone he meets a little bit of his flair, or his curse to be more precise. Everyone that has ever encountered Milton reports of this weird phenomenon where they start sleepwalking. They start shuffling around in a trance and start to wrap themselves with anything they can find. Curtains, towels, toilet paper, you name it. And then the next morning they wake up standing in front of the mirror, completely entangled like Milton himself. But they do also say they feel weirdly inspired standing there. It's like a sleepover fashion show going horribly right, in Milton's opinion at least. Because every fold is always folded to perfection. And many that has been cursed actually become rather adept in origami very quickly. Now for our little mummy himself. He doesn't yearn for fame, fortune, followers or fear. He just wants to keep playing, keep creating. And if you are one of the lucky, unlucky ones that have been struck by his curse, embrace it. Even if you have to use bathroom supplies. Because Milton doesn't want to hunt everyone. He's hosting. And you have now become a part of his collection. And that is all I know about our little mummy. Now let's talk about the painting. In staying true Milton, I did have problems getting just the right colors for his bandages. So I was relieved when I could finally turn to the detail work, which actually just was the tongue and some of the toilet paper. In order of embracing this character Milton and staying true to him, I decided to make it look like he's wrapping toilet paper around his arm, like he's trying out a new material for his next line. Also, a plus, I think it looked cute. But with the last details on, all he needed was a bit of cleanup. And I think that is it for this sculpture and it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you like Milton and his little story. I am definitely a fan and I think he fits in perfectly with the Monster Baby family. I was a bit nervous about creating a mummy because I didn't want it to become too morbid a theme. But we are on Halloween, plus I think the story makes up for it. But what do you think? Let me know down in the comments. Unfortunately, however, it is time for me to sign off. I hope to see you next time, but if you can't wait until next time, why not click on the square to your right, where you're going to see the hand thing from the Addams Family get sculpted. But until then, as we would say here in Denmark, hold da munter!